When will that horrible war in Ukraine finally end? When? It is dragged on. War of attrition. We just seem to be constantly circling around a stalemate on this. We're giving Zelensky just enough weapons to just about hold the Russians back. We're sanctioning Russia just about enough, but it's not really making any sort of difference. We're just sort of wading through treacle at this point. Well, things might be coming to a head. At the same time, we've also learned that a British soldier has died in Ukraine. Let's speak now to Major General Chip Chapman, former head of the MOD's counter-terrorism. Great to have you on the show. Talk to us, first of all, about the British soldier who has died in Ukraine. Do we know what he was doing there and what happened?
Well, I don't think we do. I mean, we know his name, Lance Corporal George Hooley of the Parachute Regiment, my own regiment, but we don't know within the Parachute Regiment what part of that. There is a Special Forces support group. I would probably think he would be part of that, which has probably been involved in training Ukrainians somewhere in the rear of Ukraine, the west of Ukraine, but the MOD would neither confirm or deny that. We have been training, of course, the Ukrainians in the UK. The 61,000 have been trained under a thing called Operation Interflex. And in a way, if you look at the theatre of operations, that could be said to be the rear of the theatre, because it's somewhere where Ukrainian soldiers who are trained have sort of psychological security. They don't have a chance of being slammed by Russian missiles or drones.
Could this end up having consequences? So now that we know and it's been confirmed that a British soldier has died in Ukraine, doing something in Ukraine, might this provoke a response from Russia?
I don't think so. I mean, Russia will use it in propaganda terms, but in terms of their internal messaging, they've already always said that they consider themselves at war with NATO, just not a hot war, more of a cold war. But that is, again, to make sure that they maintain the balance of their population on their side in terms of the digital authoritarianism that prevails in Russia at the moment. And it's that part of the preparation of the informational battlefield, or cognitive warfare, as we call it, which Russia's been very good at doing, particularly in the disinformation in open societies. So I don't think it will have any tangible impact. Of course, rather like this week, we had the report on the killing of Dawn Sturgis. You know, the Brits at the time or now could have said that was an act of war. Of course, we didn't, and neither will Russia say that this is an act of war, which all wars are for political objectives, so of course they could if they really wanted to. But from a Russian perspective, of course, what's going on in Ukraine is not a war. It's a special military operation, supposedly limited.
Now, it seems to me that all of this back and forth, trying to find a solution, a golden bridge for Putin, something that might satisfy Volodymyr Zelensky as well, is about to come to a head. And we're sort of reaching a climax here, where we've had a virtual meeting of the so-called coalition of the willing. We've had America talking with France, UK and Germany about what needs to be done to bring peace. Ukraine is finishing work on 20 points of a document that could define the parameters for ending the war. And they're going to deliver that document to the United States in the near future. But what we also know is that Donald Trump's turned around and said to Volodymyr Zelensky, if you don't get this sorted by Christmas, you're out. We're leaving it. We're not going to bother helping anymore. Now, if I was Putin, I would quite happily just reject whatever it is that Zelensky comes up with, because he knows, or at least he might think he knows, that Ukraine's not going to get America's backing anymore. And it's a bit like a wolf circling a pack and all of a sudden thinking, oh, look, that's an isolated, vulnerable thing there. In you go. I have a feeling this isn't going to work out very well for Ukraine.
Well, I think Putin's already rejected anything that is said anyway. He's been uncompromising. And the best way to look at this is a triangle when you have pressure, concessions and reward. At the moment, President Putin wants a reward, and that's particularly in terms of the Donbass, bits of Zaporizhia with the nuclear power plant there, a caveating of Ukrainian sovereignty, a caveating of the military in Ukraine, future elections. So he wants major concessions from Ukraine. He doesn't want to give any concessions himself. If he were to be given the Donbass, which he thinks that, and we think that US seem to think at the moment that Ukraine should give up and that Russia has failed to occupy. So that, of course, breaks every international law in terms of aggression. But really, the chasm at the moment between the European side and the American side is what Russia wants and what Ukraine needs are two completely different things. What Russia wants to begin with is territory. What Ukraine needs is at least some sort of security guarantees. Russia rejects that, and Russia rejects the notion also that there should be a ceasefire first and then negotiations, which is generally the European position. That also was the Trump and American position until the last sort of 3 or 4 days when he signed up to that when the Europeans last went to America to have a chat with him.
It seems to me that Vladimir Putin's running circles around everybody, quite frankly. I think that there's a part of America that's slightly afraid of him. I think that he's turned out to be more aggressive and unpredictable than people realised. How precarious is the situation if it comes to pass that there is no peace settlement? It seems for the birds that there could be one. And America reverse ferrets out of taking any part in this, and Europe is left to decide, are we going to alone defend Ukraine or not? What does tomorrow look like?
Well, I think we've had a taste for that, and your last guest and yourself alluded to that, Alex, in terms of, yo-yo, in terms of the national security strategy. You're on your own Europe, where Europe was prioritised as number 3 priority for America, the Western Hemisphere. The Monroe Doctrine is number 1, the Indo-Pacific is number 2. I don't think in the European terms that they can afford to abandon Ukraine, because the real worry for European powers is that you would have a war after the war if there is not a just and durable peace. Now, that is the real chasm that we find ourselves, whereas Trump wants, for good reasons, what we would call a humanitarian peace, stop the killing and go home. But either side of that, there's a great difference between a surrender peace, which essentially is what Russia wants, and a just and durable peace, which is what the Europeans and Zelensky want.
Major General Chip Chapman, thank you ever so much for coming and giving us your expertise on, we need some expertise, don't we, on this